Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your journey into the holistic health world and specifically why you started researching vaccines?
Okay. So I'm sure I shared this in episode 6, so make sure you go back and listen if you want more details. I never thought I would be in this position. My goal when I was a child was to become an architect. And then when I was applying for, which I'm like, that makes sense because that's how my brain works, right? And then when I was applying for college, ended up going to Bible college. And so when I was in college, I was like, maybe I'll be a theology teacher in a secular college. Like that was my end goal. Like I wanted to be not necessarily working in a church or parachurch organization. I wanted to be in a position where I was engaging people who didn't believe what I believed. And in a position to show that, I promise it's going to get to where we want to get to show that my position as a Christian wasn't one out of non-critical thinking, right? And so I never thought I would be in the health and wellness space. No one in my family, my mom works as a dental hygienist, but that's as far as any medical training goes in my family. And so where I am today is definitely a orchestrating of the Lord. It was in my first pregnancy that, everyone at my church went to the same person's birthing class. And so I got pregnant and went to her birthing class. And she talked in class, and it was a class for 12 weeks, once a week for 12 weeks. The first one was it's really important what you eat because you're building your baby. And that was the most mind-shattering concept to me at that point. This is just 10 years ago, guys. This isn't very long ago. I was very much living a standard American lifestyle. And that was so mind-boggling that I started to I should probably think about what's important for pregnancy nutrition now that I'm pregnant. I think even before that, I was vegan for a while. So I would try whatever just because it was popular. Right. Or I saw some documentary on Netflix. I understand where people are today because I was that person. So in that class, there was often so much talk about biology and the importance of having amino acids and all of the things. And so that led me into discovering my own passion for natural living. It started with birth and the birth process and the cascade of interventions in a hospital, and then trying to support the female body during pregnancy away from those types of interventions. And so that's where all of the doula lactation training came. And then I think the biggest, to fast forward and answer the question on researching vaccines, the biggest push came when we had to decide on my firstborn son's cranial surgery. So soon after his birth, I want to say within 6 weeks, I had noticed that he had a ridge on his forehead, and it was straight, his facial expressions were always pinched here. And so at one of his well visits, I asked the pediatrician about it. She had a more experienced pediatrician come in, and both of them agreed that we needed to go see a neurosurgeon at Children's. And so we were already hesitant with vaccines at that point. We wanted to delay them at the very least. But in my son's diagnosis, he was going to need cranial surgery in Children's Hospital. There was no, you couldn't decline any vaccinations. And so he had to have surgery at 7 months. And so we needed to keep him up to date at 7 months. And we thought, okay, after that, no big deal. Well, that doesn't matter because he needed to go in for regular checkups with his neurosurgeon and plastic surgeon. And that was under general anesthesia. So he had to continue to be updated. So he was kept up to date until he was 16 months old. Prior to, like, around this time, my personal conviction around vaccines was that it was setting dependent. So if I were growing up in a third world country, there would be things that would be beneficial when it came to vaccines, that would be helpful, that I would agree to. But because I don't live there and I lived here, and my exposure rate or my child's exposure rate was different, then, pick and choose what would be best. And it was just in that first year and a half of his life that the more I questioned and read and dug deep, I realized that's not the position that is the most informed, at the very least. And so it was having no choice regarding vaccines for my son. Like, he needed this surgery. There was no way around it. I wasn't going to choose not vaccinating or not having a surgery. Like, the surgery, we're going to vaccinate. That's plain and simple. But that pigeonhole in the medical system was opening the floodgates. I don't know that if we had not been pigeonholed, I don't know how much longer it would have taken for me to get to this position. But it just made me as a mom extremely unwell with my own lack of authority regarding my child. That was taken from me. And again, I can see the nuance. I can see the position that these doctors had in requiring him to be up to date with his vaccines for such an extensive, complex surgery. I just don't know that I agree that it was necessary.